Good morning. Great to be here with you. I believe this is my fourth time of speaking here over the past 4 years, I guess. But anyway, you notice I have quite a manuscript here. So I could go on a long time. but I assure you, I'm not planning to read it word for word, which is good for all of us, I'm sure. I preached one sermon at another time several years ago on reincarnation. And so this is the first time I will preach my resurrected sermon, and revised, modified, enlarged, and hopefully improved. So anyway, let's see. It's a good thing you have a clock back there, because I'll try to honor some, a decent length of time for my message today. So it is indeed a great privilege to be here today. And so I believe in reincarnation. That would have been considered a very radical and un-Christian thing to say and to believe in the church that I grew up, a small Lutheran church in Storla, South Dakota. Storla is so small that the address of Storla is Letcher. So the church wasn't much bigger than that. Actually, the church was a lot bigger than the town because of drawing people in from farms. Anyway, we were taught in no uncertain terms that reincarnation was wrong and that we couldn't believe in it. And so as a result, we were told that we had to send missionaries to places like India, where they believed in reincarnation, to get them converted to the true faith. And so that was a very radical idea, to believe in reincarnation. But that was a very different view held by a man named Leslie Weatherhead, who has had a great deal of influence on my thinking. He was the Methodist minister who served the City Temple Church in London from 1936 to 1960. Anyway, he was a great guy, and I really appreciate him. But he said once that somebody once asked him, "Can Christians believe in reincarnation?" And he responded, "Well, that's like asking whether Christians can dance." And the answer is, some can and some can't. And so with Weatherhead, it was perfectly okay for Christians to believe in reincarnation. And it just happens that I agree with him. And it's okay for everybody else to believe in reincarnation, for that matter. So you may know, or I'm sure you know, or I would guess you know, that when I go around speaking, I speak on the subject of universalism or universal salvation. And so you might wonder, why am I speaking on reincarnation, since usually my focus is on universalism? Well, it just happens that reincarnation is another way of understanding universalism. And that is because in reincarnation, of course, you keep coming back to live subsequent lives. And a very unique and important thing of reincarnation is that in between each life, when you're on the other side or in the spiritual realm, you plan for the next life. You plan so you can learn and grow, advance, become more enlightened, and you keep coming back and you keep learning and growing, and as a result, you ultimately achieve nirvana or heaven or enlightenment and that sort of thing. So that's the way it works. And so in regard to reincarnation, the belief is that everybody eventually makes it. Keep coming back till you get it right, if you will. And that's a really important thing. And so, as I said, when I speak on reincarnation, I really am speaking on universalism. So I'd like to share with you my journey that I've gone on over the years, especially over a period of, 2 or 3 years, a few years back, where I did a great deal of study on the subject of reincarnation. And so, of course, I learned that the Buddhists and the Hindus, they typically believe in reincarnation. And so that was a no-brainer. I already knew that. But the question is, how many other people have believed in reincarnation and believe in reincarnation yet today? So among the Hindus and the Buddhists, it seems like there's like about 1.25 billion of them, and so that's a lot of them. And so that's a big place to start in regard to who believes in reincarnation and has believed in it for over 2,000 years. But not long ago, or actually really years ago, I realized that Jesus believed in reincarnation. I thought if he believed it, well, that's okay, but, that's good enough for me. And you may be familiar with the passage of where Jesus was talking with his disciples, and they said, well, why do people say that Elijah must come back before the Messiah does, and before the Messiah shows up? And he said, he already has. And they understood him to be talking about John the Baptist. So he said that John the Baptist, in effect, was the reincarnation of Elijah. And then when he asked them, who do people say that I am? And he said, well, people have differing opinions, but basically they believe that you are the reincarnation of a great person, whether it's Elijah or maybe John the Baptist, or Jeremiah, or another one of the great prophets. And when he said that, or when they said that to him, he didn't say, well, that's nonsense, that doesn't happen. That was just sort of common the way of looking at things and understanding things, that reincarnation was a reality. And so, how about the early Christians? Did they believe in reincarnation? Well, they did. It's pretty amazing. In fact, a lot of people thought it was kind of scandalous that the early Christians not only believed in reincarnation, but they believed in universal salvation. And of course, you may know that it was in the year 553 that they abolished both. And so it's not an accident. It's not just a coincidence that it happened to be that they abolished both reincarnation and the teaching of universalism at the same conference, because they both are understandings of universalism. There are others in ancient times who believed in reincarnation as societies and so on in its cultures. The ancient Greeks believed in reincarnation. Socrates and Plato and a guy named Pythagoras. Does that sound familiar? The Pythagorean theorem, right? Anybody who's studied whatever it is. Is it geometry? I started to say it and I'm not sure that's right. But anyway, Pythagoras of Pythagorean theorem fame, he believed in reincarnation. He lived like the 6th century before the time of Jesus. Then in Egypt, that was commonly believed that they believed in reincarnation. In fact, two of their early leaders, their name really, let's see, the one meant, I won't even try to pronounce the name, but it meant he who repeats births. Another one, which I won't try to pronounce, meant repeater of births. And so it was common among the Egyptians that they believed in reincarnation. And another thing that I thought was very interesting, I discovered a quote from Julius Caesar regarding reincarnation, and that is he says he's talking about the Celtic religious order in ancient Britain, Ireland, and France. And so I'll quote him and tell you what he says. He says, the principal point of their doctrine is that the soul does not die, and that after death it passes from one body into another. The main object of all education is, in their opinion, to imbue their scholars with a firm belief in the indestructibility of the human soul, which, according to their belief, merely passes at death from one tenement to another. For by such, and this was really important for Caesar as a military guy, for by such doctrine alone, they say, which robs death of all its terrors, can the highest form of human courage be developed. And so they were ferocious warriors, and they weren't afraid to die, because they said, no big deal. I'll come back and live again, and so I'll have other opportunities. And it was widely held in Asia and Europe, the teaching of reincarnation, Asia and Europe, and certainly in the Middle East. In the ancient cultures, it was widely believed in those particular ancient cultures. But then I got to thinking, well, how about other parts of the world? Did they believe in ancient times about reincarnation? And I thought about the Americas. Well, I discovered that the Incas and the Mayans, they believed in reincarnation. And then to go north up into the cold country, the Inuits, or more commonly known as Eskimos, they believed in reincarnation. In fact, they believed it was typical of people to reincarnate in the family that they had lived in previously. And they also sometimes could identify in some way, or at least they figured they could identify who the person had been in the previous life. And so if they believed that it was grandma was now this other person, they would even name the person for whom they thought that person was the reincarnation of. And so this small child could be named grandma, for example. And this is especially significant to them if a child died at a young age, that they be given the opportunity to reincarnate. How about other native tribes? Of the Indians, the Native Americans, they commonly believed in it. I have this kind of a long quote from Thundercloud, and I decided I probably won't read all of that to you. But he talks about being taken to the west, where the sun sets, and I'll read a little bit of it. He talked about his previous incarnations, and he says, "There I lived until I died of old age. As I was lying in my grave, someone said to me, 'Come, let us go away.' So then we went toward the setting of the sun. There we came to a village where we met all of the dead, and from that place I came to this earth again, and for this earth again for the third time, and here I am." I like the way he ends that. Here I am. That's just kind of cool. I don't know what there is about that, but I like about that. Okay, how about other parts of the world? Maybe more isolated parts of the world. Because if they believed it in Asia and then they came across, through Alaska and so on, you can sort of understand how the people in Asia have believed it for many, many thousands of years, and therefore it's sort of logical people in the Americas might believe it. But how about in the more isolated places? How about Australia, for example? Okay, that's a very, very interesting situation. Scholars believe that people arrived in Australia around 65,000 years ago during an ice age. And therefore, much of the ocean was frozen up, and so it was easier to get there than it was after the ice age. So they believe that they got there around 65,000 years ago. And the people in Australia, universally, the native people, they universally believe, it seems, in reincarnation. And so either they believed in reincarnation more than 65,000 years ago when they traveled there, or the belief developed among the people in Australia. And at the present time, there's about 500 different tribal units or identities among the Aborigines, and they all believe in reincarnation. Isn't that amazing? I had no idea that the belief in reincarnation was such a popular thing throughout really all of recorded history. So then I thought, then where else might I do research about? And I thought, well, Africa. We've already determined that the Egyptians believed in reincarnation, but how about the rest of that huge continent? Well, my research showed up, it made it clear to me that they commonly believe in reincarnation as well. And in fact, one of the unique things about the people in Africa, and this is true of other places as well, but they believed that they could be reincarnated as more than one person at a time. So it's sort of like your soul can be split and can live as more than one person at the same time. And there are people today, I've discovered, that believe that as well. Okay, how about Northern Asia, Eastern Europe and Northern Asia? Of course, Russia being the largest of the countries in that area, and they have a history from ancient times of believing in reincarnation. So I thought, well, I pretty well covered the whole world. And then it dawned on me, Scandinavia. I'm of Norwegian heritage, so how about my Norskies? What do they believe? Well, it's amazing. From their mythology and so on, it's very clear. They believed in reincarnation from ancient times. And to get into a little bit more of a modern era, there are other people that you know about, like Benjamin Franklin, who believed in reincarnation, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Henry David Thoreau, and there are many, many others that I won't take time to mention. So I've established that reincarnation has been widely believed in all cultures that I was able to do research on. It doesn't mean they in all those cultures believed in reincarnation, but it was commonly believed in all cultures of ancient times that I was able to find and do research. But how about now? How many people believe in reincarnation? Well, a lot of people, it turns out, believe in reincarnation. The Jews, it's common for them to believe in reincarnation. I have a friend named Deborah who told me that they, during Yom Kippur, will sing a song called Return Again. And return again, or rather, return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. And that's some of the words of their song. But anyway, there are many, many others as well. So how many people in the world today believe in reincarnation? I think that's a very significant question. And it turns out it's a lot of people. Of course, if you think about the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Sufis and all kinds of other people who believe in reincarnation, you end up with like about 1.5 billion people probably in that neighborhood from those groups. But how about others? I found it's very interesting that a very significant number of Christians believe in reincarnation, according to surveys that have been done over the past several years. It's common among Christian denominations, just like that Lutheran church up in Storla, South Dakota, to say, you're not supposed to believe in reincarnation. It's not proper, it's not right, it's not Christian to believe in reincarnation, but some of us have started to believe it anyway. But the surveys show that it's somewhere between 20 and 35%, depending on the denomination. These Christians have been told, don't believe in reincarnation, but they do it anyway. And I think that's pretty cool. And there are a lot of people who don't profess any particular religious faith, that typically 20 or 30% of them believe in reincarnation. Isn't that amazing? I think that's really cool. And so I've not been able to find surveys that reflect particular percentages, say in Africa, for example. But there's a great debate going on at this time about the issue of reincarnation. And if nobody believes it, they won't debate it. And so I don't know what the percentages are, but it is a very significant thing that it seems that yet today, all kinds of people, whether they're Christians or whatever, they believe in reincarnation. So what is the appeal of reincarnation? Why is it that people like that belief so much? Well, I'll answer by saying that perhaps you're familiar with the movie Love Story. It was starring Ryan O'Neal and Ali MacGraw. It came out in 1970. And even if you've never seen the movie, I would guess you probably know the most famous line. And that is, love means never having to say you're sorry. Well, there's a professor named Stephen Prothero or something like that. He's a professor at Boston University in the area of religious studies. And he's done a lot of studies regarding Eastern religions and so on, and which of course would include reincarnation. And so why is it that reincarnation is so appealing? He said, well, it's such a positive thing to believe. And so he has changed the saying, love means never having to say you're sorry, to reincarnation means never having to say you're dead. and I like that. But, I guess that's why people believe it. It's never having to say you're dead. And so that's a very hopeful and wonderful thing. And so today, some people say that more people believe in reincarnation today than who don't. More than half the population of the world believes in reincarnation, according to some people, and I think that's probably true. And it turns out that I am one of them. You might wonder, why is it I believe in reincarnation? Well, it's kind of a fun thing to believe, but it's positive, certainly. But it makes sense to me. It just feels right. It just seems like it just makes sense. And it's fair to people who die young. For example, this little girl that was born in my parish, she had spina bifida. She died a month later. And I cried along with everybody else at her funeral, which I was conducting, and so I conducted after I got done crying. But you know, she lived only a month. It just seems fair that little Molly would have a chance to live again. And of course, some young children especially remember their past lives, and of course, a lot of other people through hypnosis are able to remember their past lives. And there are many child prodigies, and how is it that a child who's 6 years old knows how to speak 5 languages, including ancient Persian? I mean, it doesn't make sense if you live once. And so there are all kinds of things of that, like that. And there are many people I admire, like Jesus and Socrates and Benjamin Franklin believed it. So if it's good enough for them, I guess it makes it good enough for me. Another huge factor is that I believe the purpose of life is to learn and to grow. And I also believe it's not possible to do all necessary learning and growing in one lifetime. And therefore, reincarnation gives us the opportunity to come back again and again and again, and to plan in between these times of being incarnated, so you can decide what you want to do in order to be able to get the maximum learning and growth out of the next life. And you keep coming back until you make it. Wow, that's a wonderful thing. And so having the opportunity to continue to learn and grow, to become fully enlightened, or whatever term you may want to use. And so it's common that people believe in reincarnation around the world. And if it was only a small number of people who believed in it, well, okay, you can sort of dismiss that. When it seems that probably half the people in the world today believe in reincarnation, that gives credibility to the belief. Now, that doesn't mean they're all right or that they're all wrong, but it does give more credibility to the belief. Okay, now, I've been sort of serious long enough, probably too long, but I want to conclude with a poem, which I think is wonderful. You might have heard of it. It's a poem entitled Reincarnation by Wallace McCrae. It has virtually nothing to do with reincarnation except for the title. But I think it's fun to read. So here it is, called Reincarnation by Wallace McCrae. You might have heard this. I think that some country music singer or something has presented it before. So, what is reincarnation? A cowboy asked his friend. Well, it starts, his old pal tells him, when your life comes to an end. They wash your neck and comb your hair and clean your fingernails. Then they sticks you in a padded box away from life's travails. Now the box on you goes in a hole that's been dug in the ground, and reincarnation starts, my friend, when they plant you beneath that mound. The clods melt down, as does the box, and you who are inside, and that's when you're beginning your transformation ride. And in a while the grass will grow upon that rendered mound, till someday upon that spot a lonely flower is found. And then a horse might wander by and graze upon that flower that once was you and now's become your vegetative bower. Well, the flower that the horse done ate, along with his other feed, makes bone and fat and muscle essential to the steed. But there's a part of it that he cannot use, and so it passes through. And then it lies upon the ground, this thing that once was you. And if by chance I happen by to see this on the ground, I'll stop a while and ponder on this object I have found. And I'll think about reincarnation and life and death and such, and I'll go away concluding, heck, you ain't changed that much. Thank you for the privilege of being with you today.